Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I just wanted to share with you a step-by-step guide to notebooking. I remember several years ago when I first read about notebooking, I was pretty intimidated by it. It seemed like something that was very complicated and I didn't quite understand it. For a couple years, I actually decided not to do it. I just completely ignored it and pretended like it didn't exist. Yet I kept seeing other people, other homeschool moms, just raving about how awesome notebooking has made their homeschool. So I really decided to give it a try. And we loved it, and it actually caused me to have an entire notebooking playlist here on my channel. So if you want to know more about notebooking than what I'm sharing with you today, there's tons of stuff for you to look at. Today's video is really for those people who aren't quite sure about it and really just want to know the basics of how to get started. And so although there are so many different ways that you can notebook, I'm just going to use two main ways. I think they're probably the most common ways of notebooking, and that is notebooking that is replacing something in your, for example, textbook or in your lesson. So a notebook is really a fun way to compile information that your child is learning. And that might mean that instead of doing boring worksheets or doing busy work, or maybe just answering review questions at the end of a chapter, instead they are compiling all of this information that they are learning about in that specific subject, and they're keeping it all together. Another way to use notebooking, which is, I think, pretty common, is just to have your child pick out a topic that they really find interesting and let them just make their own field guide about that. So here is one example, and I've shared this in a few of my other videos, but this is my daughter's notebook on human anatomy, and this one was done based on her interests. But first, I'm going to talk about how we get started. So first of all, you want to gather your supplies. There are different types of notebooks that you can use for notebooking. You can use comb-bound books, you can use spiral-bound books, you can use composition books, or you could even use binders, which really, these are the ones that I prefer the most because you can easily add things to them, and you can also use sheet protectors that help to protect the pages that your kids worked so hard on. After you decide what sort of notebook you want to use, I suggest that you invest in some, like I just mentioned, sheet protectors, because those pages, they get worn over time, and not even just over years of keeping it, sometimes just throughout the same homeschool year when they're working on it. You know, those pages, the ends of them, they get rubbed off, they get torn, and then kids get frustrated when they see that something that they worked really hard on is kind of looking a mess. And the sheet protectors really help, well, protect against that, and that's exactly what they're used for. Obviously, you're going to need to gather some pencils and pens, whatever your child prefers to use. One thing that I always do tell my children when they are working on their notebooks is to always do their best work, because our goal is to keep our notebooks as a keepsake, something for our children to look back on when they are older and to fondly remember things that they learned about. Or they could even be used if they decide that they're going to revisit a specific topic. They can go back to their notebooks and they can actually look through it to see what information they had already learned about that, and maybe even start adding to it again. Really, you know, there are so many different things that you can do, which is why I think that you should at least try to keep your children's very best notebooks. Now, there have been a few that my children have really lost interest in over time, and if it's something that you think that your kids might go back to at some point, then by all means, if you have the space, you can keep them. But if you think it's something that you really don't see your child going back to anytime in the future, you can just do what I do, especially if it's something that only has like 2 or 3 notebooking pages in it, because that does happen sometimes. Is you can just remove the notebooking pages and then just use that binder for another topic that maybe they will like more and that they will invest more time in. You know, gotta save that money, right? Next is craft supplies. Now, you don't need this for notebooking, but I tend to really enjoy making our notebooks more like scrapbooks. So, you know, we have lots of fun stuff besides the notebooking pages. We have crayons that we use. We have lots of markers. We have stickers that I get for my children. What else do we have in here? And this is, I keep everything in a bin so that they know where to find everything. And then all of our binders and all of our, oh, another thing to use is subject dividers. Those also come in helpful if you're doing more than one topic, if you have like a really big binder. But anyway, now I lost my train of thought. This way they know where to find everything. And in that other bin, I have the binders, and I keep the the subject dividers I just talked about, the sheet protectors, and I also have a giant binder of notebooking pages, which I will get to in a minute. But yeah, so I also have index cards in here because there are so many different things that you can put in a notebook, and that is something else that I will get to today. So really the sky's the limit. We've got some glitter glue here. We have regular glitter in here if you're brave enough. There's Scotch tape in here. Of course, you always want to have like some paste that you can use to maybe glue pictures in there, or if they decide to make some sort of, my kids have already made puppets when they were making their animal notebook. So now let's get to the notebooking pages. Now you can really find them a lot of places online. You could even make your own notebooking pages. I get mine from Productive Homeschooling, and I will leave a link in the description box because they have so many different types of notebooking pages here. So a lot of the notebooking pages that I actually have in here, I'm noticing, are primary lined, which we don't need anymore. But this is what a notebooking page looks like. It is very typically a decorative border. It just makes things more fun to write on. You might have a space, as you saw on this one, to make a little bit of an illustration. Some of them have larger boxes for illustrations. Some of them are all illustration. And I try to keep my older kids from using notebooking pages that are only illustrations, because obviously notebooking is to encourage your children to write. So after you have everything together and you're sure that you are ready to start, the next thing that you want to do is you want to find out what it is that you want to notebook about. Do you want your child to maybe notebook through their history book rather than, just filling out the chapter review questions at the end, or defining the vocabulary? That can be a little monotonous. So if they work through their history book by actually writing about it every single day, that can really help them to also retain the information a little bit better, or a lot better, than just filling out the questions at the end. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, it sounds really boring to just write every single day on a specific topic. But when I say write, I don't just mean narrative style or essay style, summary style. Yes, you can absolutely include that, but a notebooking page can really include any type of writing that your child wants to do. I have already had children who made up their own word search puzzles, and then they came up with their own vocabulary for their topic. I have had children who have made comic strips and then have included information that they learned that day in the comic strip, because that's really important, is that they always have to include something that they learned that day. My children have done, interesting facts about their topics. Sometimes they might give a very detailed illustration, and if they are a younger child, I'm usually okay with that. An older child, even with a detailed illustration, I at least like them to write something with it. But to be quite honest, you can really include a lot in a detailed illustration, not just like a basic illustration. I have several children who are artists, and it's amazing what they can fit into a drawing, and you can really see what is going on. So I don't want you to write off drawing on the notebooking pages. Anyway, what else? Vocabulary words they can include on their notebooking pages. They could use copywork that is related to the topic that they're learning about. They could write their own poem about their topic, again, using information that they've included. They could write a fictional story, again, including information that they've learned about that topic. So it's really not about writing a certain way. It's just getting them to write any way that they enjoy writing, as long as you always make sure that they've got that information in there so that you know that they're not just making stuff up. They're actually, looking things up, or maybe watching videos, or going out and researching things on their own, especially if I've already had my son is 22 now, but he actually learned his biology out in the field. He was outside at the creek almost every day, just studying the plant life, the animals there. It was just, and then he had a notebook, and it was just amazing. He had amazing photos in it, because yes, you can include photos in a notebook, and you could write underneath it what the photos were. You could include maps. Again, it's just really, the ideas are endless for what you can include in a notebook. Anyway, so I talked about doing it for their textbook. If you want your child to do an interest-related notebook, what you could do is you could take them to the library. You could get them a bunch of books out on their topic. You could allow them to sometimes, I would not recommend doing this all the time, but they could sometimes watch a video on the topic and then make a notebooking page about it. If you do any field trips that are pertaining to the topic, they could then write about that. And we've actually done that. My 9-year-old, she has a notebook. She has a nature study notebook. And we visited the nature center when it was still warm out, and I really miss those days. And so she actually included some pamphlets that we had gotten at the nature center, and then she wrote about what we did at the nature center, and just basically a summary of our day there. So anyway, that's really what interest-led is. You just want to encourage your child to find out as much information about whatever it is that they want to learn about, and put it in their own notebook. So first of all, I'm just going to share with you. I showed this to you earlier, and this is just to give you some ideas. So this is my 17-year-old daughter, and in her notebook, she has included some vocabulary, and as you can see, she has illustrated it. It's not something that I require of my children to illustrate it, but I certainly do enjoy seeing the illustrations and the color and just the time that they spent on it. Here she has some more vocabulary, and here she is talking about body systems. Here is a diagram that she made of the digestive system. So yes, diagrams can also be included. Here is some facts on bones, and then she drew, let's see, a vertebrae. So right there. Here is one of the word searches that I talked about. So she has her own vocabulary words that she found in there, like nucleolus, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, cytoplasm, mitochondria, cell theory, tissue, and so on. So I'm just, and here, this is actually a diagram of the skeletal system that she included in there too. And really the possibilities are endless on what they could decide to put in their notebook. And that's really what makes them more fun, because they're not just answering questions. This is very open-ended, and they can really insert their personality into it. And because we know that all children learn on their own timeline, they all have their own learning style, and they all have their own passions and the ways that they like to express themselves. And I think that if we allow our children to do that in their work, it really, it makes them want to do it more. One thing that I would tell you is just, when it comes to notebooking, especially with younger children, I would stick to 1 page per day and one topic. I wouldn't go overboard and have your child notebook about every single subject that they learn, or about multiple topics, because then all the writing will get old fast. Even if they are using different styles of writing, eventually they're going to just be like, okay, I'm burned out. I don't want to do this. So stick to 1 page per day. Now, sometimes with a high school student, they could do 2 pages per day. I would say 1 to 2 pages for a high school student and 1 page for a younger student. And again, just stick to that one subject. And if you want to, you could always just, mid-year or after however long you want, switch topics or switch subjects and let them start notebooking for something else. But I really recommend that you not do it with too many different subject areas. And I also have a list of notebooking ideas, and I'm trying to remember where I have it. I think I might have it on my blog. I'm going to try to find a link to that. I haven't looked at it in a really long time, but I do have a list. But even if I don't find the list and put it in my description box, just share with your children what ideas I have told you about that they can use in their notebook. Just let them know that it doesn't have to be, just the dry, boring writing that most children think of when it comes to doing their schoolwork. And again, don't forget that it can be fun stuff in there too. In my daughter's nature notebook, she had pressed flowers in there that she had found. We had taken pictures of her at the nature center that we stuck in her notebook. Your child, if it can be flattened, it can go in a notebook. So just remember that, especially if your child is inclined to more artistic and creative things, then really you can think about this as a notebook combined with a scrapbook. And that's actually all that I have that I was going to share with you. I was thinking about it, and this is just another sticker book that I had just picked up for my children. And this is just that they find it fun. They like to decorate their pages after they're done with them. Sometimes they don't want to. I don't make them decorate their pages. If they want to decorate their pages, they're welcome to do it. If they don't want to decorate it, that's fine with me too. It's really, again, it's their choice. You just really want to give them an outlet for their learning that they're going to be able to look back on and really appreciate one day. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work, you can check out my Patreon page and I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.